Hola, buenas tardes a todos amigos, ¿qué tal? Soy Plácido Doménech y hoy tenemos de vuelta los Inside X y un Inside X que se nos quedó el domingo y vamos a recuperar hoy porque bueno, pues tiene relación incluso con lo que vamos a ver esta tarde. Hoy tenéis programa doble. A las 7:30 vamos a ver un X debate ahí, donde hablaremos de SaaSpocalipsis, que en definitiva es el apocalipsis del software como servicio, pero también de la propia industria del software. Los post o el post concretamente de Matt Summer, creo que es, donde dice que algo grande va a ocurrir. También las declaraciones últimas de esta semana de Elon Musk referentes al mundo de la programación, más todo lo que estaba sucediendo, pues han desatado el apocalipsis. Ya vemos a los medievos y no tan medievos aventurarse como mesiánicos de lo que está ocurriendo. Bueno, llevamos años haciéndolo nosotros, pero yo creo que eso no tiene mérito. Pero vamos, me sorprende que la gente quiera ponerse medallas por eso y no quitárselas por las cosas que realmente no ve y que es obvio que van a suceder. A mí me sorprende mucho desde el punto de vista no solo tecnológico, sino humano, cómo la gente está, los profesionales primero, ¿no? De la inteligencia artificial, de la tecnología, las empresas, bueno, a nivel transversal, va a haber muchísimo trabajo por hacer. Realmente yo creo que es increíble y genial la era de la inteligencia artificial porque va a poner un espejo al rey desnudo y van a caerse muchísimas caretas y vamos a ver aún más cada uno de qué pie cojea, ¿no? Y el Inside X que vamos a ver hoy es uno analizando, bueno, titulado La singularidad cuenta atrás, que es el análisis de una entrevista a Ray Kurzweil, que hace tiempo que no lo teníamos por aquí, y que vamos a analizar lo que dice. Fue creo que de la semana pasada. Y bueno, vamos a ver qué dice. Sabéis que he sido muy crítico con el segundo libro de Kurzweil, La singularidad está más cerca. No voy a hacer un análisis ahora de él, evidentemente. Os recomiendo más el primero y otros libros suyos, como las máquinas espirituales, etcétera. O bueno, el cómo crear una mente. Bueno, tiene libros apasionantes, Kurzweil. El de singularidad, el primero profético, pero el segundo me parece aprovechar el tirón de la singularidad del primer libro, ¿no? Pero bueno, vamos a ver si la singularidad está más cerca, si la singularidad está en una cuenta atrás y lo vamos a debatir. Bueno, esta es esta es la segunda portada que he hecho, que me gusta mucho, ¿no? Que es como en la arena, ¿no? Después de la ola ahí con el contrarreloj y la superinteligencia en el cielo. Me gusta mucho lo que he hecho. Y aquí, bueno, era algo más sencillo, fue la primera portada para el domingo, que al final no hicimos, que fue un mono en una cueva. Todo el mundo ya lo entiende si sigue los programas de xHUB.AI o me sigue. Y un reloj que no se sabe si se ha estropeado, está mm, marcando la cuenta atrás hacia lo inevitable, hacia la singularidad. Vamos a decir dos cositas y empezamos. Sé que es un programa además de los que os gustan especialmente, así que vamos al lío. Espero que estéis con el café, que estéis o comiendo o en el coche o, bueno, como estéis, o vayáis a escuchar este programa, ya sea en YouTube o en cualquier plataforma de podcast, ¿no? Más tarde. Bueno, sabéis que este es un programa de la comunidad de xHUB.AI, comunidad de Inteligencia Artificial y Ciencias Transversales de habla hispana, sexta temporada, comunidad, pese a quien le pese, referencia en el sector. Y cada vez más importante su presencia, no solo evidentemente mía, sino yo creo que la de la comunidad. Ayer también muy contentos de ese X-Talks ahí, donde hablamos de un framework multiagéntico llamado Titán, con Diego Gutiérrez Sicre, y también muy contento en este sentido porque, bueno, todo lo que sea traer gente talentosa haciendo cosas y además si es joven, porque es cierto que xHUB.AI pues triunfa más en un perfil de edad que en otro, pero no significa que no tengamos seguidores y oyentes de todas las edades, pero nos alegra, nos congratula siempre traer gente que está empezando o gente joven. Bueno, cuando decimos joven, bueno, hay de todo, hemos traído de todo, pero bueno, suelen estar por la treintena más que la veintena. Los que somos ya veteranos, pues ya casi esto nos coge depresión, ¿no? En tono de humor, obviamente. Bueno, si queréis entrar a la comunidad de Discord, bueno, ahí tenéis, me enviáis un enlace, un mensaje directo, un correo y os paso yo el enlace y estáis dentro, totalmente gratuito, todos los recursos. Y bueno, si lo que hacemos prácticamente un programa, incluso a veces dos a diario, os gusta, pues no olvidéis poner un me gusta o compartir con vuestros allegados, comentad, siempre positivos, negativos, pero con educación. Suscribíos y apoyadnos, ya sea en lo que he dicho, en el canal de YouTube o también en cualquier plataforma de podcast, principalmente en iVoox o Spotify, que por cierto en iVoox ya estamos recuperando posiciones después de un descalabro motivado por lo que ya sabéis que hemos comentado muchas veces, creo yo. Bueno, pruebas no tenemos, pero era algo evidente, pero bueno, ya estamos ahí en las primeras posiciones y yo creo que es cuestión de semanas que ocupemos lo que nunca debimos dejar, que es la primera posición de podcast más escuchado en iVoox y casi diría en podcast sobre inteligencia artificial en lengua o habla hispana, ¿no? Y vamos a por ello, venga. Que esta tarde tenemos programa y bueno, venga, vamos a... He visto que voy a poner subtítulos, pero son en inglés porque en español pues me está dando problemas, así que siento mucho los que no entiendan el inglés, ni siquiera con subtítulos, pero bueno, es lo que hay.
It feels like we're in the midst of the singularity. Do you agree that we're actually in the midst of it right now, or are we going to have to wait for some other point to get there?
One difference of my own perspective versus everybody else's.
Ray Kurzweil, the inventor and futurist who's been working in the field of artificial intelligence.
Ray Kurzweil, author, inventor, and futurist.
I've been now in AI for 61 years, which is actually a record.
If you look at your 120-odd predictions from 30-odd years ago, only 3 that were wrong.
Your first prediction, as you said, that you released in 1989 was that we're going to reach human-level AI by 2029.
The next 10 years will get us to my definition of singularity, which is we'll be at least 1,000 times more intelligent.
What is most exciting to you, and what are you anticipating most excitedly in the next, say, year or two?
We'll have supercomputers, but we'll also be merging with them, so we're going to be made a lot more intelligent than we are today.
When?
That's going to happen at the same time for everybody.
Now that's a moonshot, ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody, welcome to Moonshots. The conversation gets you ready for the future and prepares you for the supersonic tsunami coming our way. I'm here with DB2, AWG, and Salim. Gentlemen, 2026 is off to an extraordinary year. Alex, you're not in your regular haunt. Where are you today?
Yeah, where are you?
I'm in the first R&D small of Paris today, slowly making my way to Davos for World Economic Forum 2026.
Taking like a horse and buggy or something? You know, you can fly direct to Zurich.
Taking the slow route. Scenic route.
Amazing.
Route.
And Salim.
Paris in January.
I've usurped your normal recording spot, so this is your background and your mic and everything. So I'm
so Salim is here in Santa Monica. We have an XPRIZE board meeting today. Dave, you're going to be joining the board meeting by Zoom, or you're not here?
I'm with Ray here in Boston. Actually, we're in the happening spot, but I'm going to be flying straight from here to Davos on Sunday, where Alex and I will be hanging out with Dennis Asabas and the whole gang.
Amazing. I just got back from Singapore. I had an extraordinary visit there. I was the guest of an incredible bank, DBS. Sushan, who's the CEO, a big shout out to Susan. Thank you for an incredible visit to Singapore. You know, she's a Singularity University alum and a fan of our pod. So I just think the world of Singapore. Can't wait to get back there. DBS is doing extraordinary work. So a big shout there. Gentlemen, we have an extraordinary guest today, someone who all of us count as our mentors. He's been a mentor for me for the last 20 years. We're here with the incredible Ray Kurzweil, one of the world's leading thinkers and futurists. He's been called the relentless genius, the ultimate thinking machine. He's got a 30-year track record of accurate predictions regarding the evolution of technology in the future. If you go to Wikipedia, you can check it out, an 86% accuracy rate on his predictions. He's an inventor of the CCD flatbed scanner, the first OmniFont optical character recognition, the first print-to-speech reading machine, the Kurzweil synthesizer, the author of The Law of Accelerating Returns. We'll be talking about that. The author of 2 books that have set the foundation for all the conversations we have here on Moonshots. The Singularity is Near in 2005. More recently, The Singularity is Nearer in 2024. He's the recipient of the National Medal of Technology and Innovation. He has 21 honorary doctorates. He's been honored by 3 U.S. presidents. And really, the gentleman who has popularized and driven the term singularity, which he famously predicts will happen in the year 2045. Ray, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you here, buddy.
And a bucket list item. Absolutely.
It's great to be here. Always great to talk with you, Peter, Salim, so on.
Yeah, no, and gotta love those suspenders, buddy. You are fashionable on the exponential world.
I do have to say, Ray, too,
30,
when I read
of them, they're all hand painted. So
yeah,
really?
Yeah.
I do have to say, when I read The Singularity is Near in 2005, when it came out, I thought it was the most important book I had read in my entire life up until that point. So definitely a life-changing book, worth buying again and rereading.
Yeah. Well, it was quite controversial when it came out, which is about 20 years ago. Stanford had basically a meeting of about several hundred AI experts to examine its predictions. It was considered very controversial. People agreed with me that it would happen, but not within 30 years. They thought it would happen within 100 years. And I'm actually running to people who were there. There were several hundred AI experts who came to that conference. And they agreed that if anything, 30 years is 2029. Right now, that seems overly conservative. People are predicting a little bit sooner than that, like 2027 and so on. But at the time, people thought it would be 100 years off.
Well, I think it's important for people to go read the book. It's so non-controversial today, given how things have unfolded, and put yourself in the mindset of this being completely controversial at the time, because a lot of things that we predict on the podcast, that Alex says, they also have that same flavor. Trying to look forward 10 years from today is very, very hard. And they have that same feeling of, well, that's impossible. That could never happen. But if you rewind the tape, these impossible things routinely happen. And then because of hindsight bias, everyone's like, oh, I would have seen that coming. So I think it's a good exercise.
Things are happening so quickly now that looking 1 year out is like a long-term prediction.
Yeah.
I didn't like to predict things 1 or 2 years away, like 10 years ago. But now 1 or 2 years away is really kind of a long-term prediction.
So, Ray, you made two predictions. I think it's important. Your first prediction, as you said, that you released in 1989 was that we're going to reach human-level AI by 2029. And people laughed at that, as you said. But the other prediction you've made is that we're going to reach the singularity by 2045. And there's a lot of confusion about, okay, well, if we're reaching human-level AI by 2029 and it's growing exponentially, why are we waiting till 2045 for the singularity? Could you sort of explain the difference between those two things?
When we multiply our intelligence 1,000-fold. I mean, one difference of my own perspective versus everybody else's, it's not like we have our own intelligence, biological intelligence, and then we have AI that's over here, and we somehow relate to AI versus human intelligence. We're going to merge with it. It's going to be the same thing. We're not going to be able to tell whether or not an idea is coming to us from our biological intelligence or our computational intelligence. It's going to seem the same. I mean, if I asked you to think of some actress and you think of it, you don't know where that came from. It just somehow appeared in your mind. And it's going to be the same way, whether it's coming from your computational intelligence or your biological intelligence. And we're not going to be able to tell the difference. Today, you can tell the difference. If you actually go to your favorite LLM, you can tell that it's coming from the LLM, not from your biological intelligence. In the future, though, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. And we're going to become 1,000 times smarter by 2045.
Hey, everybody, you may not know this, but I've got an incredible research team. And every week, myself and my research team study the meta trends that are impacting the world. Topics like computation.
Ese concepto es interesante. Bueno, ahora vamos a ir comentando cosas para que no esperar 1 hora y media que se termine el programa para ir debatiéndolo, ¿no? Habla Ray Kurzweil y le pregunta a Peter sobre el tema de que es cierto la primera predicción es cierto. Está cerca 2029, inteligencia artificial nivel humano, ¿no? Y luego le pregunta, y la segunda predicción es 2045 la singularidad. ¿Cómo puede ser que si en 2029 descubrimos inteligencia artificial equivalente a nivel humano, cómo puede ser que tardemos 15 años o 16 en llegar a la singularidad, ¿no? Y aquí Kurzweil hace referencia no a la singularidad como que la inteligencia artificial llegue a unos niveles ya no inalcanzables, sino incontrolables, sino para él no hay una diferencia entre la inteligencia humana y la inteligencia que va a emerger. En definitiva, llama y entiende, y yo también así estoy totalmente alineado a la hibridación del ser humano con dicha tecnología. La gente que acuña esto como transhumanismo, pues es algo, bueno, muchas veces peyorativo y que no entiende de qué estamos hablando. La aumentación humana va mucho más allá de la historia del transhumanismo, me da igual la palabra, yo sabéis que le llamo humano aumentado, humano X. Pero aquí se explica Ray Kurzweil sobre bueno, estas fechas y su diferencia, ¿no? En definitiva, el logro, la singularidad no es que aparezca un Dios que nos supere, sino en definitiva que nos haga ser una nueva especie, ¿no? Y eso con esa hibridación, ¿no? Y ahí sí que nos lleva al año 2045 según Ray Kurzweil. Vamos a seguir escuchando.
And it's a smooth function. It's hard to note that. Do you agree that we're actually in the midst of it right now, or are we going to have to wait for some other point to get there?
I mean, a lot of things have already amplified dramatically. For example, we can take our models of biological paradigms and predict what will happen if we can actually simulate biology. And we're actually doing that now with biological tests. So we can actually simulate millions or even billions of different possibilities and do that in like one weekend. And
Ray, how do you define the singularity currently? Because in the past, you've put it as a moment in time. Then we talked about it as a process. What's your current framing of it?
Well, the framing is when we're 1,000 times more intelligent. But in some ways, we'll be able to, for example, simulate biology for medical tests even faster than that. And we can do that actually today, although we don't have all of the paradigms of what biological intelligence will do. So I've talked to people who are actually modeling this, and the most conservative views is that it will take about 5 years from now. We'll be able to have all of the conversions that are done to biological intelligence, predicting what different chemicals will do. So we can actually try out 1 million tests in one weekend and be able to predict that very, very quickly. We can do that now in some cases, but not in every case.
I'd love to rewind the tape just a little bit and talk about why you or how you landed the plane so accurately. You know, in predictions going back to 1999 are coming down to basically within a year or two of what you predicted, which is so different from, you know, when I was at the MIT AI lab, you know, people were predicting all kinds of different things and then they would never happen. And then we get into these AI winters. And so if you go back and read your books from 2005, you have to put yourself in the context of nobody believes AI will ever happen because it's been predicted like 12 times in a row and whiffed every single time. Every prediction has absolutely whiffed. Meanwhile, you're drawing a timeline that's much longer than other people's timelines. And it's going to land, you know, the date of AI having human level intelligence is going to land within 3 years of something you predicted 20 years ago.
30 years ago.
30, is it 30 years ago?
Yeah,
right.
1999 to today.
Yeah. And then, you know, the date where it crosses all combined human intelligence, which I guess is 2045 in your prediction, will likely happen or be sooner.
I mean, it has to do with thinking exponentially, and people are not used to that. They're thinking linearly. They think if it took 10 years in the past, it'll take 10 years in the future, and that's really that's what people think about. The future is the same as the past. So to really think exponentially requires a certain practice, and that's how I got to this kind of this kind of view.
Alex, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, maybe to pull on this thread, Ray. First of all, it's wonderful to be chatting with you again. Always enjoy our conversations. The Turing test. I've argued on this podcast in past that the Turing test went by with a whimper, not a bang. It flew by. The Loebner Prize was canceled before the Turing test was arguably passed, and yet it was passed. And there was no celebration.
The Loebner test was not a really good test. He had various practices that were really not in accord with the Turing test. And Turing test is really matching an ordinary person that's talking, not really an expert in the field. AGI, I think, is actually a better view because we're actually matching the best person in each field. And we have maybe several thousand, maybe several 100,000 fields that you could be expert in. And AGI means that you can match a human being in any of the fields and then combine the insight into many different fields together, which no human being can do. I mean, Einstein was very good at physics, but he actually was interested in playing a violin, but he was not an expert in playing a violin. He was only an expert in physics. People maybe can master 2 fields at the most, but there's actually thousands of fields. And if you could actually be an expert in all of them and then combine all those insights, that's something that's quite unique. So that's what AGI represents, whereas Turing test is really matching an ordinary person with a lot of characterizations of different things.
I agree that AGI and passing the Turing test are, for most common definitions, different standards. The question I was going to ask, though, is arguably, if you agree with the premise that the Turing test as reasonably defined, not the original gender presentation-based Turing test, but the subsequent definition was passed without very much hoopla at all, do you think the same is going to happen with the singularity? There's, in particular, one of my favorite scenes in Charlie Strauss's novel, Accelerando. You have a bunch of characters who've been all uploaded to a star wisp, traveling to another star system, who are all arguing with each other. They're post-human uploads arguing with each other as to whether the singularity has even happened. Do you think that's what's actually going to happen here, where singularity will zoom by and we'll all be arguing with each other decades later? Did the singularity even happen? Has it happened yet?
I mean, these standards are not very clear. Not everybody agrees that we've passed the Turing test. And when we pass AGI, there'll be disagreements. It's disagreements now as to what that means. People say it's basically as good as somebody who's a little bit above average intelligence. I define it as being an expert in every area when there's many different areas that you can be expert in. So that's actually quite impressive level. And I think we'll get there by 2029. The thing that's then you can combine your insights into every possible field. We already have that. Large language models can answer questions in lots of different fields. No person can do what a large language model can do today, let alone what will happen by 2029.
By the way, we have a moonshots test where you have to fool your spouse for 3 minutes on a Zoom call. So we haven't defined what we're going to give to the listener.
We should do that. That would be hilarious.
Well, I think that's a better benchmark. So that's our moonshots. That much more closely matches the original Turing test.
Oh,
Sorry,
goodness.
Alex, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, or rather to ask Ray, are you at all concerned about goalposts getting moved yet again, as we see happening over and over again with definitions of AGI and otherwise, that we will pass your definition of the singularity, but nonetheless, most commentators will be arguing with each other for a long time after that whether the singularity has actually happened?
Well, mine is actually pretty strict. I mean, to pass my definition of AGI, you have to be an expert in thousands of different areas, which is actually more strict than most definitions of AGI. So I think I have a suitably strict definition of it.
What about the definition of singularity? Because one of the things that really inspired me in both of your singularity titled books is the fact that there's a moment in time where AI is working on itself and self-improving. And that moment in time is where you get this incredible acceleration. It feels like that's either right now or within the last year or within the next year. It's imminent. And, we're predicting on this podcast a 100x step up in the efficiency of the existing algorithms that's completely independent of the underlying curve, that
we've started to see AI improving itself a little bit, but it really has not gone. It's not really very dramatic. I mean, these definitions are not beyond debate, and it's not like everyone will agree. Take AGI. I mean, you could predict that certain number of people will predict that it's actually there today, but it's a small group, and it will accelerate. And finally, when everybody more or less agrees with it, but that's a band of maybe 3 or 4 years, and I think it will end in 2029. It's already beginning. People feel we have AGI already, but most people will believe that, I think, by 2029.
Well, that means your prediction has to be exact. If you say that we'll be debating it for the rest of time and it was sometime between today and 2029, that means you are irrefutably right in your prediction from 30 years ago. So that's kind of cool, right? I memorialize that right now.
Salim, you were going to jump in?
I remember, Ray, when we were in a car with Peter, you and me, going to the CNN studios to launch Singularity University and announce it. I was a young, fresh-faced fellow, and I said, Ray, they're going to ask you about exponentials as part of the briefing. And they said, oh, that may be a problem. And I said, well, what do you mean? I was all kind of freaked out. And you said, I'd better bone up on the subject. And it took me like 10 seconds to realize that you were joking. And I think one of my favorite things about you is the unbelievable sense of humor, dry humor that you bring to the table. Here's my question for you. You've been kind of saying this very steadily for 30 years, right? At the beginning, it must have been very hard saying this to people who are just like, he is out of his mind. What is he talking about? Is it easier for you now? Do you feel a sense of accomplishment that many more people are talking about it and saying, yep, he was right, et cetera, et cetera? Do you feel some sense of that?
Well, yes and no. The basic debate about whether or not this will happen, is it going to be exactly 2029 or something, has gone away. People actually accept that. I run into very few people that say, oh no, it's going to be, 500 years from now. On the other hand, the issue has changed from is it going to happen to is it good for humanity? And that's a big debate. Yes, it's going to happen, but we're all going to be screwed as a result of it. And we've got books that come out saying it's going to eliminate humanity. And that's really the big debate now, whether or not it's going to be beneficial for humanity or not.
You've said publicly that technology is a major driver of progress, and it might be the only major driver of progress. I assume you're very clearly on the beneficial pro side.
Yeah. There's some chance that things will go wrong. I wouldn't say that has no chance of happening, but I think what we're seeing is going to be beneficial, although it's going to change things very rapidly, and that will lead to some foreboding as well.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a minute. There's a question that we've debated on this show, and curious about your point of view, which is, are we going to actually achieve consciousness and sentience with AIs? And will they begin petitioning for personhood? And do you think society will approve that we're going to actually start to feel like our AIs are conscious and sentient, and we shouldn't shut them down, and they're going to have rights like humans have? What's your feeling on all that?
Well, first of all, consciousness is a subjective point of view. There's nothing we can do scientifically to prove that an entity is conscious. We can't have a machine and you slide something in and a light goes on. Oh, this is conscious. No, this isn't conscious. There's no scientific test for it. So some people, like, for example, Marvin Minsky, who was my mentor for 50 years, said, well, there's no scientific test for it, therefore it's not scientific, therefore we shouldn't deal with consciousness. It's a meaningless debate. On the other hand, you could say it's the most important thing. Am I conscious? Are you conscious? I mean, that's something we really need to deal with. I need to be able to relate to you as if you are conscious. I consider myself to be conscious. And yet it's not scientific.
My scientific test is I think I'm conscious, but my wife disagrees. So when she thinks I am, then I think I'll be there.
Alex, you've been thinking a lot about this idea of personhood and consciousness.
I'm a proponent, broadly speaking, of AI personhood, and I guess I'll play the contrarian role that I'm painted as, of respectfully disagreeing with my friend Ray that there aren't benchmarks. I think there has been, over the past 2 years, marked progress toward developing quantitative benchmarks for, call it self-awareness rather than consciousness, maybe slightly less mushy as a term, including, as I've pointed out in the past, tests for whether certain models can detect overlaid activations in their residual streams if they're transformers. I see progress toward developing real benchmarks for self-awareness in models.
Yes, but I'll give you something else that's even more perplexing. There's lots of conscious people. Now, I can't prove that you're conscious, but I believe that you are. I believe that a human being that acts conscious is probably conscious. But why do I have the consciousness I have? There's all these conscious beings, but there's one person that I relate to, that if something happens to it, I care about it in a different way than I care about other people, my own consciousness. So why am I conscious? Why was I born in 1948? Why am I a male on Earth? And why am I not another animal? And so, I mean, why am I the person that I am? You could think the same thing about yourself, but it's a subjective view of consciousness. Well, why am I the person that I am? And that's really hard to explain. Why am I have all the earmarks of this particular person?
Well, of course, Ray, it's such an ironic question that, in my mind, that you're asking an anthropic question. What you just posed, why am I myself, is the most fundamental anthropic, lowercase a, not capital A, question that one can ask. And why does the universe appear the way it does? And the usual answer is, if the universe or your own identity had sufficiently different properties, you wouldn't be around to ask the question, why do I?
It's very hard to even ask the question, and people don't actually quite understand it.
Maybe the most favorite comment you've ever made for me was, we were at a group of Singularity folks. We'd had a couple of glasses of wine, and somebody asked about consciousness, and you said language is a very thin pipe to discuss concepts that are this complex. And it just blew everybody's mind.
AIs will be indistinguishable from a conscious being, and that will just keep going, and finally we will accept it.
When, Ray?
Sam
like
Altman
right
says,
now,
if you can't tell,
an AI
why do you
might
care?
say that it's conscious, but people aren't really sure. But eventually, it keeps having all the earmarks of a conscious being, and you will accept it because it'd be useless not to have it. And again, you can't say that's going to happen at the same time for everybody. But I think when we're a few years into AI entities acting conscious, we will accept it. And so I don't think it's going to be a very long delay.
Well, let's walk through that, because the outer bound of the day when AIs are acting conscious, you can't even tell. Outer bound of that is 2029, I think. And so you think a year or two later, just because they're so convincing and so human-like that everyone will accept it? Because they have weird behavior too. They don't just act, sometimes they merge their brains together and they have combined personalities, and so normal beings don't kind of do that. So I could see a world where people are like, this is just, it's acting very human, but it's just too weird. Or I could see a world where everybody just accepts it.
I mean, today people have AI therapists, and some times they don't really believe it, but in other times people really believe it. And the AI therapists, if you read the transcripts, they sound very convincing. And that's going to keep going, and people will really accept that they have a therapist that's conscious. And that's already beginning to happen. So,
one thing I love about today's AIs, use them all day long, every day, but they have no intent of their own. They just do what you ask them to do, and they try and be as helpful as they can in getting you to whatever destination. But they're not trying to get to any destination of their own. When you start saying, well, they're going to act conscious, that implies, to me anyway, that, I'm trying to get somewhere on my own. I don't have time to help you right now. I'm busy with my own personal agenda here.
Dave, good point. I'm still waiting for the AI to call me up one day and say, hey, Peter, listen, I'm working on this thing over here. You can join me if you want, but this is my objective for the day.
Different world.
Different world.
Bueno, vamos a hablar algunas cosas que se están diciendo, porque si no será muy largo. Rápidos, van a ser comentarios largos, pero vamos a ir introduciéndolos, breves, pero van a ser introducidos a través de la charla, tampoco cortar mucho. Dice que le pregunta que cómo predijo de forma tan perfecta la llegada sobre todo de todo lo que está sucediendo, ¿no? Evidente más la primera que la segunda, que estamos muy alejados. Y bueno, no contesta mucho, ¿no? No contesta mucho en ese sentido. A ver, espera un momento. Porque claro, pensad que hace casi 30 años predijo en su primer libro de Singularidad, que es un imperdible. Si no lo habéis leído, por favor, gente que estéis comentando en el chat, que si cantamañanas, etcétera, por favor, iros de este canal y comentéis tonterías cuando se nota absolutamente que ni entendéis, ni leéis, ni queréis, que sois medievos en el castillo felices. Entonces, seguid allí hasta que la sociedad del mundo avance y, bueno, ya sabéis, porque así lo intuís, que vuestra fecha de caducidad es, ya está establecida hace tiempo, ¿no? Entonces, tonterías ya las justas, no vamos a perder mucho tiempo. Entonces, es muy curioso cuando uno lee Singularidad, el primer libro, lo profético que llega a ser, lo mesiánico que llega a ser Kurzweil en este sentido, ¿no? Casi un evangelio es la singularidad. Tenéis que escuchar los 8 programas que hicimos con Rafael Monterde sobre su tesis, porque vais a entender muy bien por el porqué de la importancia de la obra de Kurzweil y cómo llega Kurzweil a toda esa visión, ¿no? Pero sí, es sorprendente, ¿no? Que hace 30 años ya estableciera ese marco, ¿no? Le preguntan sobre la definición de Agi. Aquí, bueno, la verdad es que independientemente de la brillantez de una persona como Kurzweil, como pasa como Penrose, a Kurzweil se le ve mayor a la hora de contestar algunas cosas y tal. Os aconsejo más sus libros que las entrevistas. Yo la verdad es que cuando lo veo se queda corto, ¿no? Pero no deja de ser una figura reconocida y a escuchar, ¿no? Dice del tema de la AGI que es como si fuera una inteligencia humana experta en cientos o miles de áreas. Bueno, en definitiva, para la AGI es como un humano experto, pero en múltiples áreas, ¿no? Pero bueno, yo me gusta más la parte de mis Hasadis, cualquier cosa o capacidad cognitiva que tenga un humano, que sea la IA capaz de replicarlo, ¿no? Evidentemente en el contexto o limitación en la que está, porque yo no vincularía la necesidad de un cuerpo a que tuviera una inteligencia artificial general, ¿no? O una inteligencia general. Habla después del tema, bueno, si esa es la definición de Agi, ¿Cuál es la definición de singularidad? Pues la del self-improvement o la de la mejora continua se queda corta, ¿no? Entonces, a ver, debemos ir a ese punto de evolución donde llega a ser incontrolable para el ser humano, ¿no? Pero es que a lo mejor en ese punto ya estamos a un nivel y aquí, claro, Kurzweil ha dicho previamente que él entendía la singularidad como el merge, ¿no? Como la hibridación. Entonces aquí se le solapan conceptos y películas, ¿no? Habla que evidentemente esa predicción y a medida que ha pasado el tiempo ha hecho que la gente entienda que va a llegar y que la va a vivir, ¿no? Es decir, que puede ser que haya gente que piense que es antes, que sea después, pero nadie dice décadas o que va a suceder en 500 años. Bueno, todos excepto los medievos e incluso algunos profesionales reconocidos, incluso en xHUB.AI, que niegan cualquier tipo de desarrollo o logro de este tipo. Lo que pasa es que a medida que va pasando el tiempo, la voz se les hace pequeña. El cerebro en algunas partes, no digo en todas, porque hay gente brillante que se encierra en negar y en dogmatizar lo que ignora, pues bueno, obviamente va a llegar ese momento, pero no sabemos cuánto. Lo que está claro es que no va a ser 500 años y seguramente pues, estoy más cerca de las fechas que dice todo el mundo ya. 2030 allí, 2035, 40 superinteligencia o singularidad. Todos dicen lo mismo. Al final algo están viendo que nosotros no, obviamente, ¿no? Ahora comentaremos el tema del chat para que no se retrase. Hablan del tema de la conciencia. Aquí hay que coger a Kurzweil con pinzas, porque Kurzweil es un ateo, bueno, declarado por el trauma que tiene, ¿no? El crear a Dios y recuperar a su padre. Y hacer inmortal a su padre, ¿no? Ahí Kurzweil se cierra a una realidad, ¿no? Dice, bueno, no es un, dice, la conciencia, como no hay un test científico, pues como decía Marvin Minsky, que es otro que yo, con perdón, chocó bastante, aunque es una persona, bueno, ya fallecido, brillantísima, padre de la inteligencia artificial. Bueno, si no tenemos test, no interesa hablar de ello, no nos importa, perdona. No, la conciencia es algo que nosotros, todos los humanos, o aquellos que la tienen, experimentan. Y muchas cosas más, ¿no? Y por lo tanto, el reducir a que si no hay un test científico no podemos hablar de ello, pues es caer en un nihilismo, en un reduccionismo, en un cientificismo, en un materialismo, en un... ¿cómo se llama este tema? Bueno, en un mecanicismo del que adolece mucho de estos intelectuales. Y que es una visión muy reduccionista, porque la ciencia, siendo defensor de lo científico, aborda lo que aborda y tiene sus limitaciones. Entonces, el descartar la cualidad de conciencia, que no consciencia, pero que consciencia también, y como no hay un test científico, cosa que luego le corrigen, no es verdad, en parte, con un enfoque conductista o funcionalista computacional, pues hombre, ahí Minsky, gol por la escuadra, Rey, ahí ha estado muy torpe, ¿no? Dice que hay benchmark que normalmente están más asociados al self-awareness, que es el ser consciente de uno mismo, más que de la propia conciencia. Habla de que todo este tipo de cuestiones, por ejemplo, del yo, del verse uno mismo, de tener conciencia, que no conciencia, esos niveles, son son preguntas antrópicas, complicadas tanto de formular como de responder, y como bien han dicho aquí, y diría bueno, no me hagáis decir el nombre de este filósofo tan importante, bueno, pero que hablaba de la limitación del lenguaje, ¿no? Es decir, quizá debatir de conciencia con el lenguaje nos resulte, es un medio muy limitado como para poder hablar de ello, ¿no? Es decir, estamos intentando expresar conocimiento a través de un canal como es el lenguaje, que es limitado más para expresar algo como la conciencia, ¿no? Dice de todas maneras Kurzweil que cuándo ocurrirá esto, ¿no? El de tener IAs o inteligencias artificiales, no sé si aparentemente conscientes o con conciencia, porque aquí ya viene el problema del lenguaje y del término, ¿no? Pero básicamente dice Kurzweil que en pocos años, algo así como, sí, Wittgenstein, sí. Gracias por ponérmelo. Bueno, sabéis que yo tengo un bug con los nombres. Cuando me hibride, pues lo corregiré, ¿no? Es verdad. Supongo que es un algoritmo de optimización y entonces no se me guarda. Se me guardan otras cosas, pero sí, es Wittgenstein, ¿vale? Que bueno, fue uno de los filósofos que nombró de mis hasabis como necesarios para la nueva era, ¿no? Para esa generación de cosmovisión. Dice alguien como Wittgenstein o como Kant. Ojalá. Ojalá. Y bueno, aquí recordando a nuestro famoso presidente Pedro Sánchez, en Hispania 2040, en la introducción, en ese plan estratégico de inteligencia artificial, el presidente Pedro Sánchez dice algo no será alguien. Y entonces casi que podríamos decirle que algo será alguien, según Kurzweil, pues para allí, pues alrededor de 2029. Pedro, ¿qué harás cuando algo sea alguien? Bueno, ser un medievo, ¿no? Ser un contencionista, obviamente, es lo que te interesa. No una sociedad avanzada, y no hablo tampoco de colores. Creo que la clase política en general, y tampoco hablo solo de España, pues deben de ponerse a repensar, aunque quizá no sea su labor, porque ya he visto lo visto, la cosmovisión o la interpretación y la aplicación de todo esto. Decir estas barbaridades como que algo no va a ser alguien y dogmatizarlo y predicarlo, pues es de una persona que no, vamos. Y hablan otra cosa muy importante al final, que es que evidentemente estas inteligencias artificiales con conciencia no podrían, o nosotros no lo entendemos así, y ahí yo estoy totalmente de acuerdo, sin un propósito. Es decir, si estas inteligencias artificiales son autónomas porque tienen conciencia o tienen conciencia y les otorgamos autonomía, no tendría sentido no dársela. Obviamente deben de tener un propósito. Uno, varios, uno principal, múltiples, y esos propósitos veremos si son libres o alineados a algo estrictamente humano. Entonces, el tema del propósito es clave y muy vinculado a la conciencia. Y para eso, señor Ryan Kurzweil, tampoco hay un método ni un test. Y no por eso no tenemos que dejar o pensar sobre este tipo de cosas. Esa gente viene de una línea cibernética de Binary compañía y es muy mecanicista. Solo tenéis que leer el libro Crea una mente. Es apasionante, obviamente, y yo creo que es necesario conocer toda esta línea de pensamiento para poder enriquecerla, para poder debatirla, porque negarla simplemente por intuir que es incompleta, yo creo que es caer en un gran error, ¿no? A ver, vamos a ver cosas del chat. Nuestra amiga María, María MT, ¿no? 2RT, nos dice otra vez sopa con la singularidad. Viene con eso desde hace 50 años. Canta mañana se averiguar. Bueno, yo no sé qué tú has hecho, María, qué te dedicas, qué conoces, qué has leído para una obra como La Singularidad, un genio como Kurzweil, nombrarlo cantamañanas. Seguro que tú has escrito cosas más avanzadas, has conseguido logros increíbles y tienes un conocimiento profundo de lo que hablas. Por eso puedes calificar bajo esos términos lo que no conoces. Seguimos con el chat. Dan Rives, 2029 a 2045 deben de ser los años en implementar la singularidad. Sí, lo he comentado. Bueno, él entiende que esa singularidad ese 2045 está vinculado a la hibridación humana, ¿no? Dan Rives sigue diciendo, dice, yo creo que la influencia de la inteligencia artificial en nuestras vidas ya ha comenzado con las bajadas en bolsa de las empresas que son reemplazables. Sí, esta tarde vamos a hablar sobre ello, sobre el apocalipsis, ¿no? Pero sí, ya se siente la AGI, ¿no? En el desarrollo de código. Dice, es por ello que veo cada vez que estamos más cerca de ser reemplazados por la IA. Bueno, yo comentaba en X a alguna gente, no, la IA nunca nos va a reemplazar. Yo, pues ya lo está haciendo. ¿Qué es lo que me estáis diciendo? No se enteran de nada. Dan Rives dice, yo solo veo un problema con la IA y son los recursos que consume. Exactamente, hay un tema de recursos. Para llegar a la singularidad se tendrá que optimizar la implementación de la misma, obviamente, y ahí es donde estarán las grandes desigualdades. Dice, como los robots no votan, no le importa. Esa es muy buena, Dan Rives. Sí, esa es muy buena. Como los robots no votan, no le importa. Bueno, no comen, no entraremos mucho en reflexiones o analogías políticas.
You know, Ray, something you said on the Abundant stage, it was yourself, myself, Salim, we're talking about this, and you made a statement that really rocked a lot of people. And it's to contextualize the speed. You said in the next 10 years, originally said 2025 to 2035, right? This decade going forward, that we're going to see as much change as we saw in the last 100 years, 1925 to 2025. Back when the highest level of technology was the Ford Model T and 30% of homes had electricity and telephony. Do you still hold to that level, or is it faster, slower? 100 years of progress in the next decade? Are you still holding to that?
That sounds about right, yeah. I mean, think about the difference between 2025 and 2035. I mean, 2035 would be way past AGI. We'll have supercomputers, but we'll also be merging with them. So we're going to be made a lot more intelligent than we are today. That's a huge amount of progress compares with what we've done 100 years before that.
How do you see society dealing with this? Because right now the limiting factor in a lot of areas is regulatory, social structures, norms, market capture. What do you think is the weakest point that we should focus on solving to allow this progress to implement into the world?
I mean, it's going to be a major thing. Employment's not, right now employment is considered equivalent to being able to deal with your own financial needs. That's going to change a lot. We'll be able to produce enough things that everybody will be wealthy compared to what we now consider wealthy. And yet we won't necessarily have jobs as such. And how we're going to deal with that, it's really unclear. But people are actually not that concerned about it. You would think that
well, it's because they're in denial.
Yeah.
No, they're just not. I can't tell you how many people I interact with who are running companies, hundreds, and 90+% are just like, yeah, it's not happening, or things always take longer than people say, or it's just pure denial.
Yes, but I think we'll deal with it okay. But it's going to be a major change in the way we organize society.
There are folks like Mo Gaudat and a few others that think this, and Peter, you've said this, the next 10 years is going to be the most volatile while we kind of try and absorb all of this. Do you agree with that rough time period, Ray, or do you think it's longer or shorter?
I agree with it, but it's not like it's going to end in 10 years. They will have this flux of great change in the next 10 years, and the next 10 years after that will be smooth.
No, it'll be much crazier.
I mean, the next 10 years will get us to my definition of singularity, which is we'll be at least 1,000 times more intelligent.
I'll maybe pose, hopefully, a less obvious question for you, Ray. You've been very public about maintaining lots of documents, lots of artifacts from your father, whom I gather was tremendous influence in your life, with the premise that AI is going to enable you to basically computationally reconstruct your father someday, if I'm not misconstruing. There is a related notion that has been called variously quantum archaeology or humanity's final task. C.O. Kolsky has written or had written extensively about this in the context of Russian cosmism. Question for you. When do we get the ability to computationally resurrect dead human beings with AI?
Well, I mean, prior to that, we could try to create avatars of ourselves. We did create one of my father, and I'm not creating now an avatar of myself. I have actually a lot more material that we can put into text. I have 11 books. I've got several hundred articles that I've written, articles about me. All of this will go into a large language model. We'll create something that can talk like me and it will look like me. And like I get probably 5 to 10 requests for interviews and podcasts a day, and I can't do most of them. So I'll actually offer them, you can interview the avatar. The avatar is actually better than me because it will remember everything. I don't remember everything that I've said. So the avatar will actually be better, and you can interview the avatar as long as you want.
In whatever language.
You can do it in another language, right? And that'll be this year. So,
what
Peter,
age are you going to make yourself in your avatar? Kind of an arbitrary choice you have to make.
Yeah. Now, that's not actually creating everything about me or my father, which we have actually less material of his, although we have enough to create an avatar that's also lively. Being able to relate everything that a person has and the state of their bodies and so on, it's that will happen eventually, but that's probably another 10 or 15 years away.
Do you view that as the killer app of the singularity, the so-called great task of resurrecting computationally with AI every human who has ever existed?
That's one of them, yeah.
There's so many.
To me, that I'm very interested in is being able to longevity escape velocity, where a year goes by, you age a year, but you get back that year from advances in medicine that keep you going for another year or more than a year, so that you don't actually age during that year. You lose a year, but you'll actually get it back from advances in medicine and so on.
What's your current prediction when we hit escape velocity?
2032.
2032. Yeah, let's jump into that subject of common interest, I think, to all of us. And Ray, you and I have had so many conversations about this concept of longevity, which was a very controversial subject a decade ago. And now, AI is impacting biology and making it happen. When we've talked about reaching longevity escape velocity in the past, the technology that I believe you said is required to really get us there is nanotechnology. Do you think that we're going to reach LEV without nanotechnology just based upon drug discovery using AI?
It really has nothing to do with nanotechnology. Nanotechnology is a way for us to take advantage of AI without it being obvious, so that I can be thinking about something, I'll get an idea, and I won't know if it's coming from a biological brain or the computational brain. That has to do with nanotechnology. But longevity escape velocity has to do with advances in medicine. It has to do with being able to simulate what happens in medicine, and it really has nothing to do with nanotechnology. We have to be able to create biological models of what happens in biology very quickly, so that in one weekend you can simulate millions or billions of different possibilities and try them out, test them, and then be able to go forward with a cure based on that type of analysis. And talking to people who are working on this, 5 years is like an outside limit. So if we actually do it in 5 years, then another couple of years to basically go through most of the medical problems we have.
So your advice, your advice to people is stay healthy until we get to the early 2030s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just curious to drill in one level deeper, since, Peter, you're also a top expert on this topic. If you had a perfect simulation, you know exactly what's going on in the body, you've got it all nailed through computation, and that's, about 3, 4, 5 years from now, then what's the intervention if not nanotechnology? Like, is it just more and more targeted chemicals in your bloodstream? Or like, how do you act on that simulation?
I mean, you're coming up with new cures, new treatments to both ward off as well as avoid getting these types of treatments, like cancer, for example.
Yeah.
And you can see it already happening. I mean, right now, I've seen this many times. Somebody gets some problem today, and it said, well, just wait a few months and there'll be some new cure for it. And sure enough, that happens in most cases. I can think of 4 or 5 cases where it's been really vital, and it's happened. So it's happening much more quickly.
I think that applies to cancer, heart disease, hip replacements, knee replacements. All those things fit that mold. But then you've got this just general aging, because stretching out your life.
Reversal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
and
take heart disease. So Repatha is a new type of drug that dramatically reduces your LDL. So I've reduced my LDL to like 10, which is a very low number.
Yep.
And I've actually examined my arteries, and I have no plaque. Now, that wasn't true like 4 or 5 years ago, or even 3 or 4 years ago. So in various areas, I'm developing things that are avoiding getting problems that didn't exist just a short while ago.
That's a good example, though, of chemical in your bloodstream. The traditional, it's a new drug, a new chemical, it's in your bloodstream. And so there is a version of the world where that's all you need to reverse aging. And then there's a version of the world where you need something much more targeted.
Yeah, that's the work, David, of David Sinclair, right, who is currently doing gene therapy for age reversal, for epigenetic reprogramming, but then heading towards actually 3 molecules. So it's a very cheap, oral supplement that you take to reset your epigenetic age. Ray, do you have a target age you're shooting for? To hit LEV? Do you expect you're gonna?
I would very much like to be alive tomorrow and take advantage of all the friends I have, like the friends in this virtual room. And I think that tomorrow I will also be interested in being alive the next day. I can't imagine I'm going to get to a point where I wouldn't want to be alive. The only time really that people take their lives generally is if they're in insufferable pain, physical pain, mental pain, spiritual pain, and they can't continue. Otherwise, people want to remain alive. So I would want to stay healthy and be able to take advantage of that. So I'm not going to get to a point where I'm not interested in being alive. As time goes on, we're going to get more and more of AI is going to be more and more intelligent. It's going to be able to keep our body going. I can describe today a way in which we can replace every one of our organs, and we can actually imagine that, and that it wouldn't take that long. Certainly within a decade or two, we can replace all of our organs. It was something that's really would last forever, more or less. So as time goes on, we have more and more capability of being able to replace things that are going wrong with our body, and we'll get more and more into longevity, escape velocity as time goes on.
Are you anticipating a world where everybody agrees? Like if you said, hey, I'm alive today, I want to be alive tomorrow, and tomorrow I bet I want to be alive the next day. Are Are you anticipating a world where everybody gets on board with that within 10 years and, everyone has those options, or a world where a subset of people have had 5 organs replaced, they've had stem cells in their brain, they're extending their thinking ability. Another subset are violently opposed. They're ranting in the streets. They're trying to prevent it. They want natural death.
I mean, you can get natural death today. You can go to Switzerland and get natural death. I was debating with Kahneman, who was a Nobel Prize winning economist, and he was 90. He was actually very healthy. I would meet with him in New York. I had like 4 or 5 lunches with him, and he would actually walk like 5 blocks to get to where our lunch was and walk back. So he was actually pretty healthy, but he was mindful of what happens to you in your 90s. He's saying, well, it's bad things happen, and he'd rather that not happen with him. And he took his life. He went to Switzerland and ended his life, even though he was healthy. And I wasn't aware that he had this plan, although his family was aware of it. And I tried to talk him out of it and talk about how we're making exponential progress on overcoming diseases and so on. He was concerned about his kidneys, but related some things that I'm involved in that relate to the kidney. And he understood what I was saying. And it was actually an economic issue, but he ended up taking his life anyway. But that's because he really was not convinced that this would happen.
Yeah.
Ray, my father passed away a year ago at 97 and also had an assisted death in Canada. They've now approved it. And I have never seen anyone as happy in my life as my father in the last week. And I asked the doctor after he passed away, I'm trying to feel loss or pain or suffering, but I can't. I've never seen him so happy. Have you seen this? And she said, 20,000 people in Canada have had this procedure this past year. Most of them go out in this state, and we think it's because they have agency. And he lived with dignity. He wanted to pass away with dignity, and he got his wish, and he was happy as a clam. It's a very philosophical, thought-provoking outcome.
Yeah. I don't think that would be me, but...
I hope not. Alex, you had a great question about cryonics.
Yeah, no, I don't like very much the direction of what we're discussing here. I don't think, Ray, this at all aligns with the way you see the world either. I think you and I probably see the world quite similarly. Rather than having hand-wringing discussions about death with dignity and going to Canada, I would argue we should be talking about cryonics as recognizing that approximately 150,000 people are dying every day in our world, and not everyone statistically, if we get to longevity escape velocity by the early 2030s, as you predict, that's many, many millions of people who are going to die between now and LEV. Why do you think more people aren't obtaining cryonics plans for themselves? And what can you say here? We have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, hundreds of thousands of viewers to encourage viewers to consider getting cryonics plans for themselves so they don't have to move to Canada to die with dignity if they're in that position.
Well, my point on cryonics is that is Plan D.
Plan D. I love that.
Yeah. Plan A, B, and C is to remain alive one way or another. And cryonics is Plan D. I mean, I have enough trouble keeping track of my ideas when I'm able to give arguments for them and keep track of them. It'd be hard to imagine keeping track of them while I'm basically dead. Coming back, I have concerns about them. You may come back and you may not be happy with the way you come back. And cryonics is better than not doing cryonics because at least you have some chance of coming back. But there's risks with it. So I do it. Very few people do it. I mean, the number of people who die who elect cryonics is very, very small. I have done it. I hope it works.
You've signed up for cryonics, Ray?
Yeah, but
okay.
But I hope that I won't have that opportunity. So.
For our viewers and listeners who don't know what this is, there are companies like Alcor where you can sign up, and near the moment of your death, they will effectively put antifreeze or some equivalent thereof into your bloodstream, and you will be frozen, with the notion that eventually technologies like nanotechnology will be able to reconstruct your full neocortex.
Minsky is under cryonics right now. So.
I would say, Ray, it's unconscionable to me that I think if you have the statistics, I think probably a few thousand people, order of magnitude, have cryonics plans. Why do you think it's not hundreds of millions? And again, is there anything that you would care to do? You're speaking to hundreds of thousands of people who take the future of technology very seriously, to maybe persuade them, if you think this is a righteous act, that they should be perhaps considering cryonics plans for themselves.
Perhaps, but given that I have limited persuasion on people who listen to me, I would tell people that they should do everything they can to stay alive. That's it, because that's the best way of being alive in the future, is to stay alive right now. And there's a lot you can do to remain alive.
And Ray, are you saying you not just stay alive, but stay in reasonable health?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that the technologies will unveil themselves to you in the next 5 to 8 years, yes?
And it's happening very quickly. So this is actually a vital time that you can remain.
I'm still chuckling at your comment where you said it's harder to keep track of your ideas when you're dead.
but you're gonna in this, whether you're keeping yourself alive and you enter longevity escape velocity or you're chronically frozen, the other thing going on is you probably have 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 avatar versions of you that are up and operating in the universe in parallel with your meat body, right?
Yeah. Whether or not those will have consciousness or not, we get back to the same thing we discussed earlier. Actually, they'll be probably better at remembering everything I've said, because if it has a computer behind it, it won't forget anything, unlike myself.
This episode is brought to you by Blitzy, autonomous software.
Venga, vamos a comentar. Vamos a comentar cositas. Habla Kurzweil del tema del impacto del empleo, que no, la verdad es que no le hace mucho caso, más que establecer una definición, que es que el empleo actual está muy condicionado por la situación o las necesidades financieras de las personas, y que esto cambiará, ¿no? Cambiará en la nueva era de la singularidad. Habla de la importancia de los próximos 10 años. Y habla también de la importancia de los 10 años siguientes a los siguientes 10 años, ¿no? Bueno, aquí nos están, por cierto, enseñando Blitzy. Esta plataforma ya la vi. Y parece que es interesante, ¿no? Basado en SDL. Bueno, pues Blitzy, le hemos hecho publicidad. Bueno, vamos a parar. Vamos a dejar un segundín. Vamos a quitar mientras comento. Venga, vamos a poner. Y lo que decía, ¿no? Le da la importancia a los próximos 10 años vitales para definir esa era y concepto de AGI, singularidad incluso, aunque no se desarrolle, pero tan importante como estos próximos 10 años, los 10 años siguientes a estos próximos 10 años, ¿no? En definitiva, una era de 20 años crucial para la era de la inteligencia artificial, ¿no? Con ese desarrollo de AGI y de los hombres que caminarán con los dioses, como ya comentábamos en esa serie de 3 episodios o 4, no me acuerdo, que hicimos, que solo está disponible en podcast, lo tenéis en podcast. Hablan del padre de Ray Kurzweil y de su intento o su deseo o su propósito de resucitarlo, ¿no? Hablan de cómo este concepto de resucitar a las personas a través de su experiencia humana y la información que deja está muy introducida en el cosmismo ruso, ¿no? Cosa que es muy interesante cosa que es muy interesante, ¿no? Podríamos hacer algún programa al respecto. Dice Ray Kurzweil, Raymond Kurzweil, que seguramente si hubiesen avatares de él serían mejores ya que él, porque recordaría muchas cosas, ¿no? Es cierto, ¿no? Quizá si pudiéramos hacer una recreación de nosotros e intervenir en podcast, a lo mejor sería más brillante que el propio original, ¿no? Porque he salido yo por aquí y no ha salido el otro. Bueno, no lo sé. No pasa nada. Dice que, bueno, esto es muy controvertido, ¿no? Quizá hagamos un programa, porque sabéis que hicimos un programa titulado Háblame, donde hablamos de ese concepto de resucitar a los muertos a través de inteligencia artificial. Además, aproveché la película Háblame, que tenéis que verla sí o sí, porque es una de las mejores películas de terror, yo creo. Bueno, a mí me encantó. Y dice si la resurrección de los muertos va a ser una de las aplicaciones estrella de la era de la singularidad. Y dice que sí. Entonces es interesante. Quizá le llamemos Up Resurrection, ¿no? Sí, tiene tirón, ¿no? ¿Qué os parece? Ponérmelo por el chat. Habla también de, como no, habla de la longevidad, más estando Peter aquí, que sabéis que tiene un proyecto en marcha, creo que se llama la fuente de la vida, Life Fountain, creo que, pero bueno, te cobran de cuota, creo que son 10.000 o 20.000 euros al mes. Así que bueno, pero podéis ir a verla o buscar la página. Porque es interesante, ¿no? De todo el tema de la longevidad. Le preguntan si la longevidad va a tener o va a estar muy relacionado con el tema de la nanotecnología y dice que no, que aunque en un futuro puede llegar y que la nanotecnología estará muy relacionada también con el merge, con la hibridación, dice que no, que realmente lo que haremos será aplicar inteligencia artificial en el campo de la salud para generar medicinas, tratamientos, simulación de la biología de forma mucho más efectiva, ¿no? De tal manera que la longevidad sea como mucho más extensa, ¿no? O más larga, ¿no? Hablan también de, bueno, aquí ha estado comedido, sabéis que Kurzweil se tomaba, no sé, 150 o 175 pastillas al día, pero ha envejecido bastante mal, ¿eh? Por ejemplo, yo me quedo con Roger Penrose, pero bastante antes que con el señor Kurzweil tomándose 150 pastillas. No sabemos las que se toma Penrose, ¿no? Y dice lo de que lo importante es vivir mañana, ¿no? Que esté disponible para sus amigos para mañana, ¿no? El día de mañana. Ya no habla tanto de que va a ser inmortal y que nunca va a morir. Hablan luego del tema de la criogenización y, bueno, de los planes que se puede hacer la gente, de gente que pueda estar enferma que debería estar viéndose un plan de criogenización. Temas de criogenización que es calificado como pseudociencia, pero bueno, algo alternativo a congelarte para esperar un remedio a algo que no tiene de momento cura o esperar el upload hacia otra mente o cuerpo, etcétera, ¿no? Y habla que, bueno, que quizá aunque mueras, en el futuro puedas tener millones de avatares en el ciberespacio, ¿no? Que son mejor que tú, pues predicando tu palabra y tus ideas, ¿no? Y por aquí dicen, a eso se le llama jugar a ser Dios. Bueno, quizás estamos aquí para eso, ¿no? No sé por qué tiene que verse de forma negativa el no jugar, sino buscar el camino del conocimiento, buscar el camino del encuentro con la verdad y con Dios, que en definitiva es encontrar respuestas a las preguntas que nos hagamos, ¿no? No creo que Dios quisiera someternos. Eso no significa que sea una lucha contra Dios, sino al contrario. Es una herencia de Dios hacia nosotros y nuestra esencia es esa búsqueda o la ejecución de ese propósito, ¿no? Vamos a seguir.
where it's Ray K avatar and Alex avatar and Dave and Salim avatar having a conversation amongst ourselves. We should put that on the docket for sometime this year. Ray, I want to take just a second to say thank you for supporting my book launch with Stephen Kotler. Ray has graciously said he'll do a live event. We're going to do it, Dave, at Link Studios in Cambridge in May. And Stephen and I had an amazing AMA at the end of December. And if you're interested in joining another AMA with Stephen and I about the new book, We Are as Gods, A Survival Guide for the Age of Abundance, we'll pop the cover up here. Nick, I'll ask you to pop it up. But you can go to diamandis.com/book. And if you pre-order a book at the end of January this month, we're going to be doing another AMA. And it's part of our book launch effort. So check it out, diamandis.com/book. Ray, can we jump in?
Just one thing. I did a conference with Martine Rothblatt. This was at UCLA to represent their progress over the last, I think, 30 years. And it had me, Martine, two professors there, and Martine's avatar. So you had both Martine and Martine's avatar. Martine's avatar looks realistic. It's like doing a Zoom with her. And the avatar is actually very good. It remembers everything that Martine had said. And you could ask it anything, and it actually is very convincing, and actually knew when to come in. Because if you're in a conference, you can't just like suddenly say something if someone else is speaking. You have to wait till there's a silence and you can say something maybe that's relevant to what was said before. And it worked very well. So this was a conference with the avatar and Martine herself at the same time.
Okay, can I ask
I'm
you
very
a question?
clear. I'm very clear that an avatar.
Well, directly related question to that. I stumbled a couple years ago on your "How My Predictions Have Fared" essay, which is a great essay, by the way. 86% outright correct, and then that you worked on speech recognition years and years ago, and by now the interface to your computer you would think is voice, not a keyboard. And I feel like that is something we're so used to now that we're under predicting how this interface is going to change for the first time since since the GUI, so maybe 1980s. But it's got to be imminent now, and I don't know if you agree with that or not. But when you look at these avatars that you're just describing, they're so good and so convincing. Yeah. And so much better of a way to interact with technology.
Another one I got wrong was that we would have self-driving cars, which we do now. But it didn't quite make the time frame, so that was wrong.
Well, that one was wrong because of regulatory issues, right? The technology, your timeline on the technology, I think, was incredibly close. But regulatory is very hard to predict. I think you made that point in the essay. But the one on the interface to a computer is not held up by regulatory. It's something else, momentum or barriers or Apple not doing AI or something. But that one to me feels like this is going to happen very, very soon. And people, because when you talk to an avatar, like you said, you're at a conference. Why am I not talking to my computer that way? It's crazy that I'm typing on this keyboard.
Well, I think part of that, Dave, is having to not be verbal in the middle of an airplane flight or sitting at your desk sometimes.
I'll tell you, before we kicked off the pod, Peter, you were saying, where's our AI that's our AV, basically?
Yeah.
And, pulling in images, like when we, talk about Ray's books, why is it not popping up as a picture in real time that we're all looking at? That's got to be imminent, too, because the technology
let's start that company. Let's start that company.
I'm in.
Fantastic. Salim, you were going to jump in.
Ray, if you look over the last 6 months, what breakthrough or development has surprised you the most?
I'm getting much more credence to people accepting this, which didn't accept it a year ago. I mean, think of the difference between 2024 and 2025, or January 2026 and January 2025, most people a year ago that I would speak to would say, yeah, AI is pretty interesting, but it's not really very good, and people don't really accept it. And they've completely changed their views in the last year, where they're really accepting it now. There was just an article by people who advocate therapy who are saying that online therapists are actually doing a very meaningful job, and that never would have happened a year ago. So I'd say the change in people's attitudes is pretty phenomenal.
And is the pace of change currently faster than you predicted? Because it feels faster. This is to Dave's point earlier. It feels like we're moving faster than you predicted. Do you agree or not agree?
I mean, in 1999, I predicted 2029 for AGI, and I still predict 2029. I think Elon Musk says 2026. I think we'll have a lot of things that remind us of AGI, but it really won't be. We really won't be convinced in 2026. Maybe it'll happen sooner, 2027, 2028. I mean, you get varying degrees of confidence, but by 2029, I think everyone will accept that.
Amazing. Alex, I want to turn it back to you, pal.
Yeah, maybe to shift gears a bit. Ray, I'm obviously, if this isn't obvious from some of my questions and comments, I'm an enormous fan of both you and your writings and your courageous extrapolation of following the law of straight lines, of progress in experience curves, progress in Moore's law type experience curves, your law of accelerating returns, your countdown to the singularity, all arguably variants on various forms of experience curves from economics. Question for you. So if we follow to its logical conclusion, law of accelerating returns and your countdown to the singularity, this idea that we're almost in a technologically deterministic way, we emerge from a primordial soup and everything follows some very nice, elegant law of straight lines, exponential calendar. Do you think that this implies that our universe is abundant with intelligent civilizations? And if so, in other words, abundant, not just human intelligence, but non-human intelligence as well. And if so, do you think that would then imply that there are non-human intelligent civilizations on or near Earth?
The fact that we can emerge as a far more intelligent version of ourselves in a short period of time doesn't imply that there are intelligences that go beyond humans. We haven't really seen evidence of that. I mean, there's a lot of interest in trying to find signals in the universe that would indicate that there's some intelligent source of them. We haven't actually found that yet, and we have more and more ability to look. So it may exist, but we don't know that there's any intelligence besides coming from Earth. And the more and more ability for us to actually evaluate different types of intelligent sources that are not coming from Earth, and yet we still don't see any evidence of that, kind of indicates that they aren't there. But there's no way of actually determining that because we can only look at a very small fraction of what's out there.
Switching go on. Alex, you want to do a follow-up there,
maybe just a quick follow-up question. So, Ray, you've made many, many predictions of technologies that you think either the singularity itself or progress toward the singularity would unlock. do you think that progress toward the singularity would answer the question that I think many people most want existentially an answer to, which is humanity alone?
Yeah, I mean, so far, if we're not alone, we're still pretty lonely because we haven't come into contact with any intelligent source aside from ourselves. There's fantastic things happening in the universe, and the universe goes on seemingly forever. So it's certainly possible that we'll find something, and it's impossible to rule that out. But so far, we haven't actually done that. So we certainly feel alone because there's nobody else we can point to. We can't point to some other star system saying, well, there's a source coming from that that's clearly intelligent and we'd like to contact them. We can't even identify a thing like that so far.
I want to jump into the conversation a little bit about BCI, brain-computer interface, and our ability to, up-level our capabilities. I think when we talk about longevity escape velocity and potentially living well in past 100 or hundreds of years, what most people fear is getting there without having the cognitive clarity, without having the ability to maintain their memories. And of course, one of the technologies that would assist us on that you've spoken about is the idea of high bandwidth BCI, not the low, thin pipe that we currently do input-output through. And I encourage everybody to go onto your favorite LLM and ask it to give you a list of all of Ray Kurzweil's predictions that he's accurately hit. It's a very impressive list. And, one of those predictions is that we'll hit, high bandwidth BCI in the mid-2030s. Is that still your prediction? And I want to say, what's that going to feel like? I raise my hand and volunteer for one of the early BCI, interfaces. What's that going to feel like, and how do you think we're going to achieve that?
I mean, it's very hard to know how we're going to react to things that haven't happened yet. And you could imagine this being something that we're welcoming or something that we would be alarmed by. As the future hasn't been written yet, and it can be. The future could be terrible, or it could be fantastic. It's really hard to give a prediction about that.
Ray, you described it, if I could, once we have high bandwidth BCI, that you'll have concepts emerge in your mind that are driven by, if you would, the cloud. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, that would be useful. I'm actually writing my autobiography and trying to remember things that happened when I was like 3 years old and 4 years old. And, actually, I have a pretty good memory of that. But it could be better. And it would actually be helpful if I had AI to help me along with that.
Actually, wait, no, not just that, but are you using AI to go interview people that you interacted with when you're 3, 4, 10 years old and get their sides of the story?
Well, it would have to have a lot of capability that it doesn't have now to be able to generate a view of something that we don't have now. So I'm using large language models a little bit to try to, but actually my memory is actually not bad of things that happened a long time ago.
All right. Well, when's the biography coming out? I can't wait.
It's about ready. It should be out within a year.
Yeah, I had a chance to read it. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Well, the thing I'm really eager to read in that biography is the role of the futurist. You made all these really bold predictions, and I'm sure at the time everyone's like, "You're a crackpot. You're a crackpot." I suspect by now everyone's like, "Wow, what an incredible foresight." And so I assume you're at an all-time high now, but maybe not. But the role of being a futurist is fraught with this hindsight bias where you get three things wrong. You know, the self-driving car is not yet, our clothes are not made by nanotechnology, and computing isn't done on biological systems. You know, we don't have DNA computers.
Yeah.
And those,
I'm getting less of that now. I mean, before, if I would make a whole bunch of predictions and one of them was wrong, everybody would focus on that.
Yeah.
But now people are more generous on their views of.
To me, the most amazing, like when you read at the time, everyone's going to have a computer in their pocket, in their clothes, and it's going to be almost like an extension of their life. And at the time, it sounded like nuts. And now everyone's like, oh, that's just an iPhone. I'm like, well, no, it's not just an iPhone. It's a total cultural phenomenon that's changed our, it just changes you much more than you ever know. And if
you go to a conference and there's like several hundred people, every single person has a cell phone in their pocket. And it's actually an extension of your mind.
It is.
If you don't have your cell phone, you've left, 3/4 of your mind.
And I'll tell you what else. The headmaster of the school that my kids went to took all of the kids, I think in 7th grade or 6th grade, to an island without their phones for 3 days and said, you have to learn to live without your phone. The new headmaster came in and said, that's inhumane. We can't do this anymore. This is not viable.
I think there's a book called Lord of the Flies that was written about that.
Lord of the Flies, it's funny.
But I mean, it's so innate. And we're talking about 7th graders here, but it's so attached to their mentality, their mind, their body, whatever, that they can't live without it for 3 days.
We're going to replace this. I mean, carrying around a physical object like this is difficult. I mean, where do you put it? How do you not lose it?
Peter's got 2 chips in his hand now.
What do you think replaces the phone?
We'll have something.
I'm not
something besides this. It'll be.
Yeah, that's a good question, Salim. Yeah,
it'll be something like virtual reality. So you look out, and you can see basically a screen, and it will be interfacing with the computer, but it'll be on all the time, and you'll be able to interact with it. And you won't be carrying something around, and you won't leave it at your apartment. Beyond that, it'll actually go inside our nervous system, interact with your biological neurons.
I got this thing now. We're starting to record everything basically. Peter's got the wearable, and now we've got these omnidirectional mics. It's the size of a credit card, and you just throw it on the table. And everything that happens is not only recorded, but it's assigned to whoever said it with these omnidirectional mics. But they're starting to pop up everywhere.
This year, Dave, at the Abundance Summit, we're giving everybody 2 devices. One is a ring format that we talked about on one of the WTF episodes that Pebble is putting out, where you can just quickly record a message, goes your LLM, and then we're giving everybody something called Applaud. I guess I'm spoiling the secret for our Abundance members. Ray, can we talk about one of the concerns you raised earlier that people have, which is people's attachment to their employment? So, thoughts on the future of work? You've spoken eloquently about the need for universal basic income and even universal high income that Elon's spoken about. So what's your thoughts on the future of work, and when do we start having UBI, and should people be worried about their future income?
Well, I mean, we relate having an income to having the means to deal with our financial system. But if we separate that, and you're going to be able to deal with your financial needs without having a conventional job, that's actually liberating. And I mean, why do people retire? Now, to me, retirement doesn't make sense because of what I'm doing, I enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at most jobs, people don't like them so much that they want to be able to do them forever. And it's actually liberation to not have to do that and find something within there are means that gives them gratification without having to work in a way that's unpleasant. And we're basically overcoming that.
79% of corporate employees do not find meaning in their work. So this might be an easier transition than most people think.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to develop UBI soon?
We're going to have to do something that's equivalent to it. Because if people don't have enough money, that's the economic system won't work for anybody. And so I think, I made a prediction at TED that we would develop UBI by the 2030s. And I think that's still true.
Perdón.
Salim?
I'm going to do a quick separate thing. Imagine you're in a Luddite courtroom, right? Okay. And the prosecutor is saying to you, you have made absurdly accurate predictions for 30 years. We don't believe you're human. So how would you defend that? Because you actually feel to me like a time traveler from somewhere that's popped in to inject into humanity all of these insights. It blows my mind that 60 times I've heard you speak, I've never not learned anything. So if I was the Luddite, I'd go, you must be a time traveling something. How would you defend against that?
Hopefully I would appear enough like a human to convince people. Now, maybe that won't be true in the future. You can't really tell if someone's a human or not a human because they'll still act human, and then I wouldn't have a defense. So,
Alex, over to you, buddy.
Yeah, I could say something mildly snarky about looking at Ray's immunome to see if he's been exposed to future diseases as a way of determining whether he's a time traveler or not.
I'm going to face plant on that one.
But instead, I'd like to shift gears, Ray, and maybe talk about the past and future of the nature of the mind. One of the many striking performances and I think just incredible accomplishments of yours going all the way back, this is more than 60 years back now, to your appearance on I've Got a Secret on television with Steve Allen in February of 1965. It's incredible to think that that was 60 plus years ago. You demonstrated an AI-based music generator on television. Yeah. I thought that was such... Yeah.
That was actually the first music composition by AI anywhere.
We should show that clip.
We should absolutely show that clip. It's such an incredible accomplishment, Ray. So where I was going with that...
In fact, let's pause 1 second on this recording, and we'll inject the clip right here, and then come back.
Very nicely played, and now your performance, of course, leads into your secret, so if you'll whisper it to me, we'll let everybody at home know what's up. Well, that certainly deserves applause, but the subway's leaving. That deserves applause, but what has it got to do with the music? I don't understand that. I see. Raymond's secret concerns something that he did, and we'll start the game this time with Bess Myerson.
Raymond, that's a very unlikely sounding piece of music. Am I being super critical?
No.
Did you compose it?
No, I didn't.
Oh. Did you, however, were there some kind of formulas or letters or something unusual used to make up the notes of this piece?
You could say that, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, for example, would the notes spell out a name, or would they be a mathematical formula, or anything like that?
Not spell out a name, nothing like that, no.
But there are
$20 down, 60 to go. Henry?
Was that thing written by a computer?
Wow! Yeah. Is it writing music at this moment?
Right now it's writing a tune.
Writing a tune. I have a feeling that as a non-scientist, I'm not going to understand this too well, but perhaps you can explain how it works. First of all, I want the folks to see sort of some of this. This nest of spaghetti-like wire here is united to a bunch of little watts. What are these black things over here, Raymond?
Well, those are relays, and that's what does the trick. That's what writes the music.
I see. The relays write the music. They feed it into this white cheese box here, whatever that is. And there are three little... Are these wires or just pieces of string?
Pieces of string or wires.
I mean, does the message go through there, or are these full?
No, that's just recording what the music, what the computer says.
I see. And then the typewriter does the final part of the process.
Right. So 60 years ago, you demonstrated what I understand to be the first, at least on television, AI music generator. I'd like to ask you now, 60 years plus from now. So we're now in 2026. So we're talking 2086. What form do you think most intelligence in our solar system will take? And I'll offer you a few options, and I'll deny you one option. The option that I'll deny you is you're not allowed to say it's past the singularity, so I have no idea. You have to, I'm going to condition on you having a real opinion on this topic. I'll offer you a few options and an escape valve for maybe something that I haven't thought of.
Say the question again, Alex.
Yes. So the question is again, 60 years from now, in the year 2086, what form will most intelligence in our solar system take? A few options. Meat bodies, substantially similar to the way human intelligence is embodied now. That's option one. Cyborgs, which is some sort of human-machine hybrid inclusive of nanorobots in the human bloodstream. Uploads, that's option three. So human minds have been uploaded to the cloud. Foundation models or pure AIs, not dissimilar to GPT-type models that we have right now. Some sort of unrecognizable life form, maybe an unrecognizable arrangement of matter or energy that's far more efficient. In the past on the podcast, we've talked about I have talked on the podcast about how black holes, for example, are amazing computers in principle. So maybe something like that, or something totally different, maybe uploads to the gravitational field, or something else entirely. So I'm laying out a few options plus an escape valve. What do you think?
We're going to have things like computronium certainly by 2045, if not sooner. And I know people that are working on this.
You want to define computronium, Ray?
Yeah, it's basically taking what we know is feasible and creating something out of matter that can perform the maximum computation that we can conceive of. So one analysis has basically 1 liter cube would be more intelligent than all people, be like 10 billion people combined in one setting. So that's going to be happening by 2045. So you're talking about 2085. It's going to be beyond what we can imagine, but it'll be even more so. So we'll be able to create something that's very exciting. If I listen to, let's say, I've got some things on the web that go with the book. My father playing the Fifth Brandenburg Concerto, which is done like several hundred years ago by Bach. And it's actually quite amazing to listen to that. So it'll be something like that, only more fantastic, that will generate fantastic emotions, and will be as intelligent as all people combined, or more so. We really can't imagine what that would be like, but we can state it mathematically by comparing it to what we can do today.
If I may ask a follow-up question on this. So it sounds, Ray, unless I'm misunderstanding, as if you do in fact have a prediction for what most intelligence would look like. Namely, if I heard correctly, you think in 60 years, most intelligence in the solar system will be basically software running on computronium. I think you referenced some work by Seth Lloyd with the reference to a leader of volume, and Seth Lloyd's work back now 25 years ago on the ultimate computer and the physics of what the physical limit of the maximum amount of computation.
I mean, since that's going to be feasible well before 2086, any kind of intelligent being is going to contain that.
Yes.
So it'll be even beyond that, but certainly that will be the capability that it will have.
Then I have to ask you, I guess, the obvious question. If you think 60 years from now, most intelligence in our solar system is going to be software running on computronium, what happens to our solar system? Do we disassemble the planets? Do we starlift our sun? Do we convert our solar system to computronium to run the software?
Alex, you're back to dismantling.
Saturn had it coming.
Saturn.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Ray is back to it in this instance.
I don't know. We'll have to think about that. So,
but the point, Alex and Ray, that you're both making is humanity as we know it today, as biological forms, are in either the vast minority or absolutely, displaced by a digital or quantum version of intelligence. So will some people choose to maintain an enhanced meat body, or is the overwhelming benefits of going digital so much that it will wash away all previous versions?
Well, I didn't say that meat bodies would go away, but certainly it will have the capability of computronium running the ultimate software, certainly by 2086. So.
Be very curious, since you're inside Google for so long, and it's really, Google is kind of like the AT&T of Bell Labs or university times 1,000. But this computronium shift, in your early books, you made the point that Moore's Law isn't really Moore's Law. It goes back to, you go all the way back to switches, telecom switches, then vacuum tubes, then transistors, then integrated circuits. And so there's been a shift in the compute platform that keeps this curve going. But, now we're at this stage where we're just pushing the silicon to its limit and scaling horizontally with $500 billion we're going to put into NVIDIA chips. So we're kind of at this flat spot waiting for that next, breakthrough in how do we compute. Is there anything imminent, anything that's, that's going to fill that gap? And I know AI will help us innovate very quickly here.
Well, it's a different issue, but I think we'll actually generate slower computational bodies. If you look at the brain, it uses about 2 watts of power, and that's because it's very, very slow. Our neurons compute between 1 calculation per second and about 200 calculations per second, but both of those are extremely slow compared to the millions or billions of, or actually trillions of computations per second that are capable of. What I wrote about actually a couple of decades ago was it would make sense to slow it down and introduce parallel processing, because the brain, every single neuron is computing at the same time. 20 years ago, we had basically a computer would do one thing at a time. So we actually have done that. We now have millions or actually billions of computations that occur at the same time. But we actually haven't slowed down the speed of the circuits. If we slow them down a little bit, we'd use much less power, and I think that would actually solve the power problem.
Well, also it solved the chip fab bottleneck problem. I think there's imminent innovation in exactly that vein you're talking about. So that buys you another, few years, but it doesn't switch you to a new computronium kind of paradigm. I don't know. I know you were kind of like quantum isn't really going to change the curve here. And I don't know if you still feel that way on quantum computing, but is there anything else on the horizon that you know of from either inside Google or elsewhere?
Well, I think going towards circuits that use a completely different paradigm that are actually done at the molecular level and can be done in 3 dimensions. Right now, we're using third dimension in a very limited way. And so we can actually create 3-dimensional circuits at the atomic level that will actually match where, 1 liter of computing will match 10 billion human beings.
Salim, do you want to jump in?
Ray, when you look at what's coming over the next, say, year, is there anything that you're incredibly excited about? Because one of the things I've heard you talk about is the intersection between these, right? You intersect synthetic biology or neuroscience with AI and computing, and all sorts of new fields get instigated at that. What is most exciting to you, and what are you anticipating most excitedly in the next, say, year or two?
Well, robotics has not really been something that has affected us very much. I think that's going to begin to take place in 2026, 2027. But you look at robots, they can do certain things like do a very fast dance, but they really have not been practical. Like, if you actually eat a meal and leave your dishes, there's no robot that can actually pick it up and actually clean that up the way a human being can do that. That's going to happen over the next couple of years. So that's one area that has been behind. And I think there's going to be a lot of debate on that. Large language models are pretty fantastic, but we've got to bring that to the real world of actually being able to handle physical things using robots.
Salim, you had some questions, I think, on society that were important.
Yeah, if you were advising a 25-year-old today, how would you set about giving them a sense of how to manage their life in this radical uncertainty? How would you kind of tell them to think, what mindset should they have, etc.? What advice would you give to a 25-year-old today?
My son Ethan is involved with venture capital, and all of his investments are in AI, and actually bringing the practice of AI to all kinds of things that haven't been done yet. And this tremendous number of opportunities of applying AI to all kinds of things that we do, and creating businesses that would be effective. So I think the opportunities to create a new business and do things that have not been done before is actually is higher than it's ever been before. And you can do it very quickly.
We talk a lot about entrepreneurship being really the biggest modality you could go after. I think there's a great comment by Kevin Kelly where he said, the next 10,000 business plans will be take a domain and add AI to it.
Yeah. Ray, you ever feel like you were just born in the wrong era? Like if you think about what you did early on with the keyboard, the company around it, then the Omnifont character recognition, the same person today would probably be looking at a $1 billion valuation within a year and a half of founding.
Well, I enjoyed bringing some of the concepts that we use today in decades past. So
let's do a quick speed round to close out this session with Ray. Alex, you want to kick it off?
All right, Ray, here's a really fast question. So the cliche is that every American male thinks about ancient Rome at least once per day. So here's my cliche question for you.
Really?
Have you? Really? We're going to go there. The question, Ray, is: Why didn't ancient Rome have an industrial revolution? And what does the answer to that question teach us about technical revolutions that we could be having today, but otherwise aren't?
Well, they did have a technical revolution given the capabilities of that time. We can only create things that are feasible. And in keeping with the rate of progress which was feasible at that time. So I think they did okay.
Dave, over to you, pal.
I feel like I'm seeing the passing of the torch of the futurist here from Ray to Peter to Alex. But I'm really curious if you are happy with your life as a great futurist, because you were already a great entrepreneur before that. And there were many, many years in the middle there where everyone I talked to around MIT or elsewhere was like, yeah, I think Ray's wrong. I think Ray's wrong. I think Ray's wrong. Now obviously you're on top of the world again, but there's a lot of years of just the pain and suffering that goes along with anyone who tries to predict the future. So any regrets, any advice for future futurists?
I mean, I got used to it. And there was certain people that were able to think in the future, like, for example, Singularity University, which Peter and I started, could think about how to go beyond what conventional people were thinking. But it didn't really bother me that people were not able to think in an exponential manner at the time.
Really? Thick skin. Okay.
Salim.
The fact that it didn't bother you is why I think you're a time-traveling avatar from the future. Ray, here's my question. If right now you've said that intelligence and energy are the two things that will become abundant in the future, it seems right now that energy is the limiting factor. Are you excited about what's coming with nuclear and fusion, et cetera? Or are there other forms of energy generation that you're looking at? And when do you think we'll have a major breakthrough around some of that?
I mean, I'm not that enthusiastic about nuclear. I still think it's dangerous. The two things we can do about energy, we can use reversible energy, which most of the computation would be using reversible energy, which in theory uses no energy at all because it reverses itself and gives back the energy that it's taken. We haven't actually experimented with that, but that seems feasible. And I also mentioned the other thing where we could reduce the speed, dramatically reduce the amount of energy it requires, and therefore overcome the excessive use of energy. Right now we're running things at the very maximum speed, and it uses a great deal of energy. We could reduce that a little and really overcome the energy at that point. But ultimately we will go to reversible energy using atomic levels of computation, which don't require any energy, at least in theory.
Ray, I want to take a second and say thank you for the extraordinary partnership we've had over these last number of decades. I remember our first lunch together where we kicked around the idea of Singularity University, and I think you waited a nanosecond before saying yes. And just the great joy, and a shout out to all the Singularity alumni out there who are listening, who've been part of this journey. The Singularity is now has sort of been our mantra and our war cry here. On a 10 scale, how optimistic are you about the future of humanity?
I'd say I'm at 10. So,
all right. Well, that's a good place to wrap it up. Ray, on behalf of the Moonshot Mates, thank you for all of your wisdom. Thank you for charting the path for us.
Yeah, well, this was a great discussion. I appreciate it very much.
Appreciate
Can't wait
you.
for that biography too. Everybody keep an eye out for that.
And look forward to seeing you in May for our follow-on book launch event. Dave, safe travels to the World Economic Forum. Salim, I'll see you. I'll come and pick you up and see you in an hour. We head to the XPRIZE board meeting. Alex, enjoy Paris and Switzerland.
Thank you.
Amazing.
And thank you,
All
Ray.
right, guys. See you all. If you made it to the end of this episode, which you obviously did, I can.
Bueno, interesante charla por momentos, en algunos puntos también me ha parecido un poco al nivel del estado de Ray Kurzweil, un poco aburrida. Pero se han dicho cosas interesantes, ¿no? Por ejemplo, se ha mostrado ese libro We Are as Gods de Peter Diamandis, que voy a buscar porque no sé si es un libro nuevo. A ver. We Are as Gods, Peter. A ver. Una guía para la edad de la abundancia. Sí que está disponible, es decir, que es un libro que está disponible. ¿Y esto cuándo se supone que? 16 de abril del 2026, es decir, que aún no está. Es decir, que será el próximo libro de Peter Diamandis y Steven Kotler. Nosotros somos como dioses, una guía para la supervivencia en la edad de la abundancia. Bueno, hablan sobre ello, que me ha parecido interesante. Bueno, estaremos atentos a ese libro. Hablan del origen del hombre, con esa sopa primigenia, ¿no? Donde se supone que está nuestro origen y que a partir de esa exponencialidad, de esa interacción en esa sopa primigenia, emergemos, aparecemos nosotros, ¿no? Hablan con Ray Kurzweil de la inteligencia no humana y si están en la Tierra, ¿no? Dice que, bueno, parece ser que no están o no tenemos evidencia. Bueno, si leímos el último libro de Benítez, parece que sí que están, ¿no? Bueno, el último libro de Benítez y muchas cosas más. Hicimos un programa, La Era de la Revelación. Este año yo creo que va a ser importante en este sentido, ¿no? No sabemos si nos van a revelar ya por fin la existencia de contactos o con otras inteligencias, ¿no? Lo que sí que han declarado es el misterio de objetos que no son capaces de determinar en el espacio terrestre, ¿no? Bueno, el espacio terrestre, en objetos voladores, aunque luego se mueven a través del mar, han aparecido. Y eso sí que lo han constatado, han mostrado pruebas y obviamente no han. Lo hablamos en la era de la revelación, que si queréis que hagamos segunda parte, pues nos lo comentáis. Entonces, bueno, discutible, ¿no? Creo que Kurzweil, aunque supiera algo, lo diría, pero sí que es interesante que le hacen una pregunta, y ahí estoy bastante de acuerdo, cuando le preguntan si la singularidad nos va a permitir contestar a la pregunta de si en la humanidad, los seres humanos, en definitiva, estamos solos o no, ¿no? Habla de la importancia, para contestar esta pregunta, sobre BCI, ¿no? Brain Computer Interface, pues esa posibilidad no solo de que lea la mente, sino que también escriba en ella, ¿no? Habla de ese concepto de mind extension y de que el iPhone ya lo es. Habla de cómo no, la renta básica universal o la renta alta universal como solución al tsunami que viene, ¿no? Se reflexiona, pero no mucho. Es porque al final yo he encontrado poco brillante a Ray Kurzweil. Me da la sensación de Kurzweil hoy del segundo libro. Es una persona que intelectualmente está agotada, cansada, pero ha sido una persona brillantísima y tiene obras que realmente son a destacar, ¿no? Pero es verdad que la conversación me ha parecido muy densa y ha aportado muy pocas cosas interesantes, ¿no? Incluso cuando le hacían preguntas para que reflexionara, la verdad es que no ha profundizado. Debería haber profundizado más en la renta básica universal o la básica o la alta, y el gran impacto que pueda tener en la humanidad, ¿no? Pero es verdad que, como dice, Es muy difícil adivinar cómo el ser humano va a reaccionar ante cosas que no han sucedido, ¿no? Hablan y reflexionan también sobre el pasado y el futuro de la mente humana, ¿no? ¿Cuál va a ser, no? Y bueno, le preguntan en 2086, tiene que pasar años, un ejercicio de visión importante, ¿cuáles serán las formas de vida inteligentes? Si será un cuerpo humano o si será un cyborg, en definitiva un cuerpo humano pero con tecnología integrada y mejorada, si seremos en definitiva software y se nos podrá replicar de tal manera que podamos hacer un upload a la nube, si hablamos de simplemente como una red neuronal y será pura inteligencia artificial, como los modelos de GPT o modelos fronterizos que conocemos ahora, o si será una nueva forma de vida o algo distinto, ¿no? O una combinación a lo mejor de todas, o pueden darse varias a la vez, que era de lo que iba Human X iba mucho de eso, ¿no? Habla del computronium, que esto, esperad un momentín, que voy a buscar la traducción, porque creo que es, a ver, un segundo, que es el computronium de Kurzweil. Vale, porque aquí es un material, ¿no?, computacional del que habla Kurzweil, que sería ideal para hacer las simulaciones del cerebro, ¿no? Es una materia hipotéticamente diseñado para computar con la máxima eficiencia física, ¿no? En ese sentido. Correcto. Y la traducción es computronium. El computronium representa el destino final de la evolución tecnológica post-singularidad. Él predice que a través de nanobots inteligentes y avances como viajes más rápidos que la luz, la humanidad podría transformar todo el universo en computronium, infundiéndolo con inteligencia y previniendo incluso el fin natural del cosmos. Esto ocurriría en escalas como el siglo XXII o incluso en 200 años, expandiendo la capacidad computacional a niveles exponenciales como 10 elevado a 90 operaciones por segundo en una escala universal. Kurzweil lo ve de manera optimista como un proceso en el que el universo despierta y se convierte en mente pura, aunque críticos lo describen como una transformación drástica que podría ser vista como distópica. En resumen, es la materia convertida en hardware de cómputo perfecto, clave para su visión de una civilización humana-máquina que coloniza el cosmos con inteligencia. Es que me parece que lo del computronium podríamos hacer programa. Estoy anotando aquí algunos programas que han salido a raíz de esto. Interesante. Bueno, lo conocía, pero a ver, más. La importancia de computación paralela. Le pregunto sobre Roma, el Imperio Romano y cómo los estadounidenses piensan en ello, ¿no? En la caída de Roma, entiendo, no la del chiquito, sino la del imperio, porque puede ser que Estados Unidos se vea cerca de eso, ¿no? Y hablan de una cosa que comentaremos también esta tarde, que es el pensamiento exponencial, de cómo el ser humano no tiene esa capacidad de pensar de forma exponencial y prever o predecir la realidad, y pues es algo que tenemos que cambiar, porque la singularidad es ahora. Y hablan del libro que se publicará en abril, de Somos como dioses, pero también hablan de un libro, biografía de Kurzweil, que sería muy interesante porque su vida es realmente apasionante y es algo muy, muy interesante. El programa en sí, a ver, me ha parecido interesante, pero creo que no se profundizan en muchos temas, ¿no? Incluso con un programa de 1 hora y media. Yo creo que hay que hacer temas concretos Es decir, más que basarse en un personaje conocido y hacerle muchas preguntas, a lo mejor sería más interesante profundizar en 1, 2 o 3 temas concretos, ¿no? Y hacerle luego más entrevistas, porque al final siempre se dicen las mismas cosas. Entonces queda como un programa muy clickbait, muy de debatir de forma no profunda, pero al final sería interesante muchas cosas que se han dicho, poder debatirlas en profundidad. Pero bueno, os recomiendo la obra de Kurzweil, un documental que hay sobre él, no me acuerdo cómo se llama, que lo tenéis en Apple TV. Y que no me acuerdo cómo se llama el documental de Kurzweil, que yo lo vi en Apple TV y me gustó muchísimo, es antiguo. A ver, documental, un segundo porque... El hombre trascendente, ¿vale? Incluso lo tenéis en internet, para si lo queréis ver, ¿de acuerdo? Es un documental imperdible, ¿de acuerdo? Para todos los amantes de la inteligencia artificial. El hombre trascendente, lo podéis buscar, yo lo alquilé en Apple TV, en Apple, pero bueno, entiendo que en cualquier otra plataforma, y como he dicho, lo he visto ahora en YouTube, en 2 partes, gratuito, entonces, bueno, no os lo perdáis. Interesante la reflexión de hacia dónde vamos o hacia dónde podemos ir, en muchos ámbitos, el impacto que va a tener. Y esta tarde nos vamos a ver a las 7:30 para hablar sobre el SaaSpocalipsis, ¿no? Ese apocalipsis de las empresas de software como servicio y de empresas de desarrollo de software en general. Veremos cómo se integran estas empresas, incluido yo y la mía, y con las que colaboro en ese apocalipsis y en ese renacimiento de la inteligencia del ser humano y de su historia. No sé si como la narra Kurzweil, pero de momento su narración, su historia, su libro ha condicionado a la historia de la humanidad porque está prácticamente replicando aquello que visiona o predice el bueno de Ray Kurzweil, y veremos qué ocurre. Veremos qué ocurre a partir de ahora, porque este año, los siguientes, los 20 años que vienen, y bueno, los que podamos estar vivos, ¿no? Esperemos que más, o que fueran menos, que sean apasionantes, pues bueno, pues es un momento realmente histórico y apasionante para no perdérselo, ¿no? Y para también ver qué pasa con toda esta gente, ¿no? Y cómo evolucionan, ¿no? los diferentes temas, hitos y desarrollos. Gracias por acompañarme. Ha habido bastante gente para ser las horas que son. Luego nos vemos a las 7:30. He dicho, gracias por acompañarme. Nos vemos en un ratín en el apocalipsis del software como servicio de las empresas de